What thing about you is absolutely not a secret, but you've just never told anyone because nobody's ever asked? When I was a kid, my parents told me never to let anyone touch my penis unless it was at the doctor's. Looking back as an adult, I know they were trying to make sure I didn't let anyone abuse me, but as a kid, it just made me paranoid that the doctor was going to want to touch my penis every time I went in for a checkup. When I was struggling and had next to nothing in my bank accounts, I had a complete stranger gift me $5,000, and while not a life-altering amount for some, it completely changed my life. Now that I'm in a much better spot, I try to pay it forward. Each year one finds someone who needs some serious cash to change the course of their life and anonymously gift them with the same second chance I got all those years ago. I'm 23 and have never been on a date. It's not something I actively try to hide. I'm just not going to be the first person to bring it up in conversation. I don't get brain freezes. When I was a kid, I would slam some milkshake and say "oh, beer ain't freezy," and then go back to slamming it because it was all a big lie. I just don't get them. However, my throat will get too frozen to continue chugging ice water or something of that nature, but my brain stays nice and warm, ready for more. I can't actually believe I'm admitting this right now. I feel liberated. That I was molested when I was 14-ish by my mom's stepdad. I told my mom, but she didn't want to tell anyone in fear of them killing him. I was scared to call the cops, but now, 20 years later, I'm happy I didn't. He died a very slow, painful and lonely death. Karma is real. Edit grammar. Realized how shitty my spelling was. I don't understand gender identity and wonder a lot whether other people feel like a man or woman. I don't mind being a woman, but ... am I supposed to feel like one? Or are we all just kind of going along with some arbitrary bullshit? I literally have no idea. However, this has never come up in conversation. My sexual history before meeting my husband. I'm 6 years older than him and was stupidly promiscuous prior to our marriage. He never really was interested in learning about my sexual past. My son would probably rather eat a spider than ask me about it. My parents had no idea and never questioned me. Everyone else I work with or encounter probably just sees me as a sweet, mundane middle-aged woman, which is fine by me. I'm not ashamed of my past and would talk about it openly. Just nobody really asks. When I tell people my brother has been in the hospital recently, people just assume it is for surgery or maybe COVID, but no one asks why. In truth, he was in and out of high-security psych wards because he was hallucinating horrific images of torture and screaming. He ended up stabbing himself with a knife and wandering the streets. He has delusions that a certain roommate of his is behind all his terrible visions and feels like he needs to protect random co-workers from him. He has 2 restraining orders now and refuses to take any medication. Destroyed his career and now lives with our abusive mom. Funny that no one asks, especially my friends. They have all met my brother and, up until 5 months ago, was as normal as can be. One day everything changed and no one around me really knows that the person they met, an average, funny, nerdy photographer dude, is kinda gone. I hope he comes back to us one day. I overdosed her and my husband had to do CPR on me. The whole time I was unconscious, I could hear and see things that I shouldn't have been able to. I remember them taking me out of the ambulance and being rushed in to get work on and hearing the chaos, the smells and the sounds, then waking up in a crew questioning it all. Wow, I haven't openly told anyone that part of it ever. It's not really that I don't like gossip. I just hate when people give out other people's private stories or personal information / habits / feelings / medical issues. I have boundaries. because some people can't be trusted. It's not that I don't like them, I do like them, and often it's those folks one can't just leave behind that treat us worst. It's not anti-social, it's pro-social, because having boundaries makes us stronger. Being called anti-social for not wanting to engage with it. Others have picked up this thought as well based on no personal experience, only the word of the person offended by my disagreement. It's not really fair. Just get to know me. Instead, I'm actually quite friendly and talkative. People don't ask, but I wish they would, instead of just assume. It's what happens, I guess, if we don't stick up for ourselves enough. That I'm autistic and have been diagnosed since I was 9 years old. Just a few months ago at what was basically a block party, not quite though, I've never heard of those here in Denmark. I had a neighbor tell me that she's worked with autistic kids and that I'm definitely not autistic. I am though, and it greatly affects me on a daily basis. Nobody at my work knows I'm autistic. I wasn't planning on keeping it a secret and I told my boss when he hired me. During a break, several of my coworkers and myself were joking around. One of them talked about some person doing something stupid and referred to that person as a fucking autist. Since then, being autistic has been used as a slur, which caused me to not want to reveal to them that I'm autistic. I have 2 of those punching bag thingies in the back of my throat. Uvulas, I think they were called. I was horrified as a child when I learned other kids only had one. My mom told me I kept trying to give one away, but when I got into school I just stopped talking about it. Oddly, it never comes up in conversation. I was utterly convinced that I would be blinded as a child. Why, I'm not sure, but I would spend hours on my hands and knees with my eyes closed, mapping the house so I could get around without my sight. No one ever blinded me, but I can still walk around my childhood home by closing my eyes and imagining the floor plan. Throwaway account. I'm actually kind of well off financially. I make 6 figures. My house is paid for. I have no debt. I am pretty deeply ashamed of these things, so I tell no one about them. I drive beater cars and wear off the clearance rack clothes, so hopefully no one finds out. I think most people at my office know because they have some idea what I make, but none of my friends do. A few years ago I realized I never really donated to charity, so I started donating $100/mo to various charities and still do to this day. It's just never came up naturally with anyone who talks about their charitable contributions with their friends. And I have no reason to bring it up without sounding like bragging. Never been in a relationship or had sex. A couple friends know, but it's not something I bring up in conversation. I feel it's pretty obvious to most of them because in the time they've known me they've never seen me with anyone and they've never asked me anything about my dating, sex life. Wouldn't be anything to tell. My husband and I have been together since my daughter was a baby, and he eventually adopted her. It's not a secret or anything, but a lot of our friends and even extended family members forget/don't realize. We don't ever bring it up, so new people we meet just don't know. It was a very painful experience when my first marriage fell apart and the adoption process was expensive and long, not something I care to talk about at this point. When they say she must have gotten her height or eye color from her dad, we all just smiled and nod. It's my daughter's story to tell now anyway. There are 2 of equal magnitude. 1, I had sex a lot, as in at least 7 times a week, prior to this godforsaken pandemic. During the pandemic I've been as celibate as a castrated Catholic priest in Antarctica. Luckily the pandemic is slowly ending and I'll be able to go back to having fun soon. 2. I've got my finances set up in such a way that I don't have to work another day in my life unless I want to. I received a large inheritance and parlayed that into investments that give me the freedom to do whatever the fuck I want in life. Even though I have this at my disposal, I work a regular job and save money where I can still. I view work as more of a social situation than a I need the money situation. I could never lay off someone who was doing their best, unless they are completely incompetent, in which case I would have no problem, but then they shouldn't have been hired in the first place, so I would make the person who made the final decision to hire them do the firing. If they are no longer with the company, then I would make the next person down the line. In high school, people were surprised that I had siblings. I never told most people because most of them never bothered to ask. Also, I lost my virginity just last year, but I only told 2 people. Everyone else A. assumes I'm still a virgin, B. assumes I lost my virginity ages ago, or C. don't really care either way. I'm not trying to keep it the secret, but also, it's not something people ask about nowadays. I like learning about urban planning and how cities develop over time. The way all these systems are built to interact and also operate completely separate from one another fascinate me. In addition to that, I love cities skylines, SC4 and a ton of the indie city builders management games that have come out in the last few decades. It's not a secret by any means. I'm just the only one in my circle of friends who likes that stuff. I'm still madly in love with an ex-girlfriend from my early 20s who is 15 years older than me. We broke up on mutual terms as we knew it wouldn't work long-term due to vastly different life goals. We still remain in contact, and I flat out told her I think I will always be madly in love with her, and she says she reciprocates the same feelings. Also, I occasionally smoke cigarettes, like maybe a 1/2 pack, 1 whole pack per year. Won't smoke in front of my siblings, parent. Most people honestly will only smoke in front of a very select group of friends. I don't hide the fact that I do. If any of them ever ask if I smoke, I tell them yes, but none have ever asked. I just won't smoke in front of them, though I haven't actually smoked in about 3 years as I haven't gotten together with anyone due to COVID. Everyone assumes I'm debating being child-free because I'm selfish, but in reality it's because my doctor said I'd have to get off my antidepressants, 100 mg sertraline, and I just can't do that. I've tried getting off them many times with terrible failures. My potential child deserves a mentally stable mother, not whatever I am. I'm not actually racist. I'm a bit of a surgeon at times with English and give my 2 cents on controversial topics but never actually cross that line. Usually people get one whiff of it and distance themselves before even comprehending my opinion, but the few who stick around usually end up admitting they had the wrong idea. That I am no longer religious. Christian. I just stopped going to church and just stopped worrying about religion 10 years ago. My family, which is very religious, just doesn't ask or just doesn't care anymore, but I never found a reason to say anything and I have honestly been happier since. About my father being in jail for several years, my friends only know that my mother is at home. In my teens I avoided that question or made something up or simply said they are separated and he lives in another country. Now I have come to accept the things how they are and I always tell my friends the truth when they ask about him. My mother doesn't like that I say it, but I am just being honest. He is out now and we have good contact. I'm asexual. Unless there is a very heightened sense of mental and emotional attraction to the person I'm with, then I want to be physical with them. But other than that, I don't go around going wow. I'd like to bone her. A girl can be a 10/10, but if there is no mental connection, well, it has to be all 3 for me: mental, emotional connection. Then if those two are there, then it's physical and I go crazy lol. I technically have 2 dead siblings. My mother had 2 children die in her stomach while having my older sister. She was supposed to be a triplet but was the only one who survived, and I was born 5 years later. I don't bring it up because it never gets brought up lol, but in some ways I guess things worked out since I bet if those kids were born I wouldn't be here today since I doubt my mom would want another kid. I went a year and a half having interstitial cystitis and was in debilitating pain 24/7. The people who were in my life at the time and still are know about it, and some other people do too. I just don't bring it up unless it comes up because I'm fully recovered from it now. It is odd to think so many important people in my life have no idea since it completely destroyed my life for almost 2 years. That I genuinely feel like there's nothing good in the future. People in previous years and shit probably had similar feelings, and it doesn't help we're still going through the pandemic. But there's a small part of me that feels like that this time is when we reach the end. It really is just a matter of when now. It's most likely just me being stuck in my fucked up perspective, and being overdramatic as always. At least it's making me appreciate the present more than ever lol. I have told some people about this so if it counts, but whatever. I'm writing a book and I'm actually serious about it. It's about 7 chapters long at the moment. I have a chapter outline. I have ideas and little passages for later saved on a doc. I even have an ending planned out. I want to get it published someday too. I'm double jointed in my shoulders. I can pop my shoulders out of socket and get about an extra inch or 2 in reach. It's not super useful, but since I'm a 2A supporter, it's nice that I won't ever dislocate my shoulders when firing large caliber rifles. The only way they can really injure me is if they were to shatter my shoulder completely, which is highly unlikely. I have some form of bipolar depression/ADHD/dyslexia, and I literally cannot find out what I do have because I've been diagnosed with so many different things over my life. For example, I can't spell to save my life. I go through spells where I have to finish every single piece of schoolwork in front of me or I'm going to spiral and end up crying the whole night that I'm not good enough. I have other spells where I'm ridiculously hyper and love everyone and they go away after a few minutes and usually I feel really sad after them. It's funky and really obvious sometimes, especially when I'm doing anything that includes English. I suck at it. I was a borderline binge-drinking alcoholic around the age of 17. I wasn't physiologically dependent at the point where I got my shit together, but I was psychologically dependent on it. But like it was the only way I could actually allow myself to feel my emotions, etc. I still have some unhealthy attitudes towards alcohol and worry one day that it may become a serious problem. But for now at least it feels like I've got a grip on it, even though life hasn't been so great lately. I have a hard time seeing gray unless it's in a completely neutral tone. If it's a cool gray I see green, like a pale murky camo green. If it's a warm gray I see tan. No good way to describe it, not colorblind in any way. But people don't know unless I ask them to grab me the tan or green thing and they're like, this is gray WTF. I had a debate with my mom for years over a pair of leggings she got me. Great to match the dress. I was confused. My atheism. I come from a deeply religious, evangelical family and married into similar. I regularly go to church, remember the doctrine, and I'm raising my child around faith. My wife is religious, though has eschewed the darker sides of fundamentalism. Aside from a public crisis of faith at 17 that was brushed aside as teenage angst, no one in my family circles, aside from the wife, knows. To them, I'm just as adherent as they are. I'm actually in really good physical shape, but I always wore a hoodie and jeans with ratty Converse to school every day, so none of my classmates actually know besides my friends. I've shown up to school dances looking like a completely different person, and people I know from my classes don't actually know who I am.